A Bahraini court has sentenced 4 people to life in prison and a 5th person to 10 years in prison after convicting them on terrorism charges. The defendants were found guilty of blowing up a car last November to disrupt the Formula One Grand Prix. They were also found guilty of making and possessing explosives, detonating explosives, and stealing a car, all with the aim of carrying out a terrorist act. The bombing occurred near the financial center in the Bahraini capital, Manama, but no one was killed or injured in the incident. Bahrain has held the annual Grand Prix race since 2011. Let's speak to Jawad Fairooz. He's a former Bahraini MP and he joins us from London. Many thanks for joining us here on Pressy, Mr. Fairooz. Now, the Bahraini courts handing down harsh prison sentences for those taking part in anti-government protests or showing resistance against the Al Khalifa regime is nothing new. What do you make of these latest rounds of sentencings?
It's clear that the regime is using judiciary system to harsh and attack and put in prison as many activists as possible and sentencing them mostly arranging between 15 to the life sentences. And due to the lack of any type of independent resources, we cannot justify it just to say it is a political revenge. And all we know that due to this uprising, the regime used the judiciary system to more and more put in prison and try to punish them with very heavily unjustifiable reasons. Definitely, all the defenders of these victims say that there is no fair and the conditions are not proper or internationally cannot be accepted. And all of them being under the torture and whatever evidence they prove that their testimony has been taken under torture, but unfortunately the court is not considering that at all. I can present many cases, and myself, I was part of this process, and the judge usually they take direct order from the government, so definitely it is biased and it is directly being ruled by the executive body and part of a political game that the regime is playing with the opposition.
Right, Mr. Fairooz, this also comes at a time when the Bahraini regime officials have expressed their desire to set up a court for the Arab world to uphold human rights. What do you make of that? Definitely
it is part of the PR that the government is playing, try to mislead international community and try to show that they are defendant of the human rights. But in the ground, we see there are a very clear violation of human rights. And just if we say about the clear discrimination, about the as many as 4,000 prisoners, activists in the prison, as far as we can see clear attacking the people. You know, 2 days back, a youth of 14 years old is being directly by a bear shot is being killed and deliberately is being killed. And we can see that this heavy use of tear gas daily. We can see that how they demolish the mosque and still, especially the Shias, becoming now under oppression and discrimination against them. So all type of the human rights violation is occurring in Bahrain. But meantime, the regime want to fool and try to mislead the international community through this PR. And unfortunately, some people, they think that the regime is under process to change and make some reform in this regard, which is totally untrue. The ground conditions speaks to itself that this regime is not willing to make any type of the reforms. We wish that the international community take further serious steps to change that manner and impose a serious reform, either through the make some sanctions or adopting certain type of resolution in incoming Geneva Convention and Human Rights Council, which is going to be by next month in June.
Indeed. And Mr. Fairooz, speaking of this PR campaign, very quickly if you can, how complicit do you think are the Formula One Grand Prix officials in helping the Bahraini regime show this image of normalcy for what's happening in Bahrain?
Although the Formula One, it is in a sport activity, but unfortunately the regime used to use it as a political activity in a way that to show that there is a stability and there is everything is fine, and all the sport activists and international tourists that are coming to Bahrain to attend this event. We saw being open to the international community that the people of Bahrain, the opposition, are not against the formula, but definitely they are against to use the formula to make a good image of the ruling family or the regime, where they want to hide the oppression inside Bahrain or try to use it to repute the wrong image of what's going on in Bahrain. So it was so clear that whenever any reporter used to come to cover F1, they find out that how much oppression and how much the security tight is there, and how many people are there in the street demanding their rights, and mostly they used to cover the events carried on by the opposition more than the events of F1.
All right, that was former Bahraini MP Jawad Fairooz joining us on the line from London. Mr. Fairooz, thank you very much for your comments here on Press TV.